Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Hopefully Daniel Winters is just having a bit of technical difficulties, but I'm sure he'll be able to get in a moment and we'll keep an eye out for him. But I'm pleased to start this webinar. It's our second one. If you haven't checked out our first one in the series, I invite you to head over to our YouTube page, and the first one is posted. That had a few attendees and one of our Stanford research partners, Dr. Joseph Brown. So it's definitely a good watch, and I highly recommend that. For those who don't know me, my name is Haley Platt. I am the Chief Marketing Officer here at Siembra. And something that I've tried to focus on throughout these webinars is bringing the stories back to the students and families and talking directly with district leaders to, understand what's going on in their districts and connect them to post-secondary institutions, whether that's admissions officers or university presidents that I've had the pleasure of getting to know. So with that, I'd love to introduce Dr. Gordon Amerson. He is the superintendent over at Verde, and he'll kick us off. Dr. Amerson, welcome.
Thank you so much, Haley. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today.
Yeah, thank you. Do you want to start by telling us a little bit about yourself and, how you got to be a superintendent?
Sure. Well, this is year 25 in public education for me, and this is the fourth district that I've had the fortunate opportunity to work for, quite frankly. So I started as a classroom teacher. I was a high school science teacher, taught in the San Bernardino City Unified School District for a number of years. Worked my way up through the ranks from classroom teacher to assistant principal to principal. Worked also in human resources. I was the director of certificated human resources. And then I left San Bernardino, went over to Orange County, went to Capistrano Unified, where I was the assistant superintendent of HR. Spent a few years there. And then for the last, now going on almost 9 years, I have been a superintendent of schools in two different districts. My first district was in Duarte, which is LA County, Duarte Unified School District. And now I've been in Verde for the last 2 years. And I think one of the opportunities that we get working in leadership is, for me, it's been the opportunity to get shoulder tapped. People have seen things in me that maybe I didn't see in myself at the time, and thought that I would be a good leader. And I've been given a number of opportunities, and I'm trying to take those opportunities and turn those into results for kids. Looking for opportunities, looking for access. And we're going to talk a little bit about opportunities and access to higher education. I had some struggles and some challenges along the way, which we probably can unpack in this conversation. But nevertheless, resilience and grit and perseverance, I think, has been a really important piece, not only to my college career and college life, but then also into my professional life as well. So that's a little bit about me, and I'm looking forward to the conversation. Thanks again, Haley.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing all of that. It's so good to hear that you had these support systems along the way that introduced you to, your potential and things that you can make a difference with. And so I think it's the perfect opportunity to talk about today. And we'll dive in a little bit more how you channel your own experiences into helping your students and their families. And now I can introduce Dr. Daniel Winters, who's on here as well. He is the superintendent over at Sweetwater and one of the assistants who specifically focus on leadership and innovation. And so he can tell you more about that. Welcome, Dr. Winters.
Thank you, Haley. Sound works okay?
Yes, you're all good.
Good. Thank you for the promotion. Don't tell my boss, the superintendent, that I am now the superintendent. And we're all good with that. But I am the assistant superintendent in Sweetwater. Our district is right on the border of Tijuana, San Diego, in Chula Vista mainly, but we also serve the South County all throughout San Diego. My career has been in the South Bay my whole career. I began as a teacher in Sweetwater at a school called Castle Park High School, where I attended school and stayed in that school for 17 years. Then went in the elementary district close by. I was a principal at 3 schools in Chula Vista, wonderful organization there, and then got to come back to Sweetwater as a director of research and evaluation. Despite the fact that I had trouble getting to the Zoom link, I oversee IT. I oversee all of our middle schools, and really am excited about our partnership with Siembra and helping our students navigate the ever-shifting kind of road to college and success in college. One of the data points that I look at and have for years is how many of our kids go to college, start out in college, and how many actually complete. And that number is very low in terms of, like, if we had 100 seniors in Sweetwater, about 85 graduate more or less every year, and 60 of those, 65 go off to college. But 6 years later, only 36 of those kids are graduating from a 2 or a 4-year university. So helping kids match and get to a school that will help them complete that journey is important, and helping more kids, of course, have that access that Dr. Emerson mentioned. Access and opportunity is really the great phrases that we look at. So we are looking forward to the conversation today and contributing toward increasing the understanding in the field of how to best support students to have success post-secondary.
That's awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I think that's a great segue just to explain for some context for those of you who might not work in higher education or in education in general. It's important to understand that the current landscape is shifting a lot with college admissions. We know academic success cannot always be equated to, the amazing teachers and support systems that a student might have in place. There are many factors, and we know that inequities begin very early. So I think something that is important to note is in the current paradigm shift is we're seeing, decreased in standardized test scores being a part of the application process. And with that, we know that real GPA academic indicators over time are way better at, predicting student success in college versus a test score kind of really only helps see how a student will do in their first year. And beyond that, it's not the best. So we're trying to see, how can we create a student population that feels confident in themselves, that feeling of self-worth and self-belonging. Not only that, but have the academic level of preparedness that will help them in post-secondary. And with that, exploring all the different pathways that are out there. So not limiting students to, just those A through G requirements, because the reality is many of those students aren't going to be going and reaching that A through G, but what are the CTE dual enrollment pathways that we have available to them? What community college partners are interested in helping those students, like what you had mentioned, Dr. Winters, keeping those students engaged and helping them and feel supported and connected as they matriculate. And it's super important when a student gets to a post-secondary pathway and they maybe want to go to a 4-year that we keep them engaged all the way through maybe a transfer pipeline. So with that, let's bring in Dr. Amerson and begin. So I think first off, when we talk about the decline in standardized test participation for college admissions, we know that we need other supplementals that can help a student feel confident in their application. So what would you say, how's your district adapting to this decline? Let's start with you, Dr. Amerson.
Sure. Well, I think the first thing is to really understand and embrace that we need to broaden the definition of what college readiness is. What we believe in Verde is really taking this whole child approach. We focus on being MTSS aligned. And our approach really focuses again on academic achievement, social emotional growth as well. Couple that with career readiness, and we can talk about CT pathways and the like. But we look at all those pieces as opposed to relying solely on standardized test scores. Because we also know that GPA is a pretty strong predictor of student grit, more so than a one and done kind of standardized test. But we still, obviously, we have to value the role of a standardized test as one pathway towards that particular opportunity. So we've done some things organizationally and systematically around absorbing the cost for PSATs, absorbing the cost for SAT exams, for all of our identified students. And then any other student who chooses and wants to participate. We think that's really important. And so we do that all the way beginning down in our middle schools, because we do want to create a system where equitable access is at the core of what we're about, and what we're really trying to do is eliminate a barrier. And the barrier sometimes is simply something like cost, for instance. And then through our MTSS framework and our approach, we use multiple indicators: A through G completion, CTE pathway completion, AP and IB dual enrollment, seals of biliteracy, seals of civic engagement, ethnic studies participation. So we're looking at what are all these different indicators that a student may be prepared and may be ready and willing. And then we have those measures reflect kind of our district's overall focus on student strengths and deserving that recognition and extending that beyond just a simple test score. So those are some of the things that we do.
Yeah, I think that's great that you're focusing on the student as a whole, because there's so many factors that go into a student's readiness, and they're not applying as a senior in the fall. It's a culmination of all of the academic years that came before that. So I think making sure that they know from a young age that they can be successful in a post-secondary environment, I think that's great. How about you, Dr. Winters?
Yeah, I would piggyback on a lot of the same things in terms of that whole child approach. And well-rounded students are going to be successful outside of high school, no matter where they go. We definitely embrace CTE pathways for students. We have partnerships with our local community college for dual enrollment. We're expanding that. Just created a middle college, high school on our junior college campus. And we've actually just initiated conversations with CETIS in Tijuana to look for ways to partner with them to give our transborder students an opportunity to find programs on either side of the border. So options and opportunity is the goal. Like students have a variety of strengths. Some will be well served to get to a four-year university right away. And we want to help them find that match. I know a lot of the barrier to successful college access is information. Knowing that if I choose this college, my chances of graduating are 80%, whereas if I go here, it's 60. And so finding that right match is important. So giving kids enough information to make an informed decision when they get to that point is important. The question was about adapting to the decline in standardized test participation. And we've had debates. We have difference of opinion on our own cabinet about the importance of standardized tests. Some who want to, toss it out right now and just eliminate it completely, and others who have kind of taken a more realistic approach to that. And so I think we've found a balance that we know that the standardized test will never go away. It is one piece of the puzzle that will be considered. In fact, there's a study that just came out from UCSD last week, which they looked at the performance of their students over the past 5 years in math and language arts. And they saw a significant decline in student performance. They've added a bunch of remedial courses. Now, why did that happen? Of course, the first guess was COVID learning and the lack of learning that happened during that time. No doubt that was a part of that COVID process, so as we all went through that. But they're also looking at that, moving away from standardized test scores and wondering if they need to rethink that process. So that pendulum is going to swing back and forth. I think our job is to make sure kids get support to do well academically, as Dr. Amerson said, social, emotionally, career-wise. We need to give them a broad variety of skills that will make them successful, no matter how that landscape changes today and moving forward.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it. And of course, more on the paradigm shift for our viewers who may not understand what's going on from a higher education side, is that the way that universities are recruiting students to college is through this name buy model. So they're getting a lot of their student base, marketing base, through these test scores. But what Siembra has found is that it's more equitable to start at a younger age by partnering with the districts themselves, and giving every student in the district the opportunity to connect with an admissions counselor and build a relationship over time, versus having, if there's less and less recruiters, less and less students available to the recruiter, it's shrinking that applicant pool and that possible recruiting pool. But Siembra helps open that channel up to include every single student, and just make sure that they are on the right track and getting the support they need. And just what you said, Dr. Winters, finding the right fit, I think, is really important, because not every path is going to look the same for students, but giving the students those options, especially for those who, you know, our first generation, who may not think that college is in their future, and helping to shift that mindset is a big part of what Siembra does. And we've been lucky enough to partner with your districts and ensure that your students are getting not just the resources and support they need, but again, eliminating those barriers that often exist between K-12 and post-secondary. So I guess that kind of transitions into my next question of, what new measures or tools are you using to assess and communicate that college readiness? I guess how I would kind of shift that is, how are you supporting students along the way by, you know, what practices do you have in place within your own district that are helping students feel prepared?
Who would you want to start?
Yeah, great. Yeah.
Oh, me? Okay. Fair enough. I'm happy to see the floor to Dr. Winters, but sure, I'll talk a little bit about what I'll just call as Verde using a layered approach that brings together state accountability, but that also takes a look at local dashboards, and then also counselor-led student monitoring, which I think is really, really important, because that's how we're truly going to get those deep, meaningful conversations that happen between student and counselor about progress, about goal attainment, about hopes, dreams, aspirations. I can remember my own personal experience with my high school counselor, which was not good, because my high school counselor really, really looked to put me into a box and said, well, kids like you only can do X. And I made the decision that day as a freshman to never speak to the counselor ever again. So the rest of my high school experience was not really spending time with counselors, but instead relying on teachers or coaches that believed in me and didn't put me into a box. And so I'm super sensitive to the counselor-student relationship, and we invest deeply in counselors. We think that that's really, really an important piece towards college and career goal attainment. But let me just talk about some tools that we use that I think are important. So we obviously use the college and career indicator, our dashboards. We also use some local, what we'll call data visualization tools, Tableau, as well as Power BI, that help to tell more of the story of what is happening and what the data is really saying, to identify those trends and those kind of subgroups and equity gaps that exist. We do comprehensive A through G audits. And so twice a year, we have our counselors and our administrators at our high schools do an actual audit of every one of our students' schedules and their college eligibility. We also do quite a bit of work through CCGI, California Colleges .edu, where we track A through G completion, explore careers, and submit college applications electronically. And then we have a huge district-wide push, what we call a race to submit. And so we have a race to submit dashboards. And then we also use some more leading indicators, some early indicators, where we use AP potential reports from PSAT to really kind of identify and potentially really work to pull those students in who have potential and really push them to realize the greatest level of their potential. So we think together with all those different pieces, we have this comprehensive approach that looks at various layers to be able to address those areas of the tools and the measures that we're looking at.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think it's important to appeal to all types of learners, all types of students, and of course the counselors and teachers work. I'm sorry to hear that you didn't have a great experience with your counselor. I'm sure the counselors at your school are not like that, but I think it's super important to understand what students are struggling with as well right now. Before we get into that and what challenges families might be facing, Dr. Winters, do you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, I'll say many of the same things. Of course, a comprehensive school district similar to Verde. I would say that the counselor certainly is the key person, or persons who support our students A couple of things I would add that we do specifically. We do career nights on the trades. So we have a number of series of events. So recently we just did the construction trades, building and construction trades. So it's again building that skill set of students for career readiness of all kinds. And then in terms of data, we've partnered with High Tech High Graduate School to be a part of their Carpe network, which I think they do across the state, which does similar to what Dr. Amerson said about Race Submit. It's really about FAFSA completion, helping have a real targeted approach at your school and your district to make sure students have everything they need to complete that lovely FAFSA and get that hurdle checked. And finally, I'll say we reach out to our several student groups through clubs and conferences. We have an Adelante Latino, Adelante Mujer conference for both male and female Latino students. We have put on a RISE conference for our African American students, and a Macaisa conference for our Filipino students. And those really highlight success stories in our community for each of those student groups, to see people like them succeeding, going to college, having successful careers, and a series of workshops that go on during those days to really support those students and highlight them. And those have been extremely successful in us reaching out to all of our students to help close the gaps in some cases of student groups who have historically underperformed, but have the skill set. Just with support, they can get there. So those are the few things I'd highlight that we've been doing at Sweetwater.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think it's great to have peers, peer-to-peer relationships, just to show students that, hey, that looks like me. I could be doing that. And I actually mentioned, for those of you who might be interested in hearing directly from students, I actually host a podcast, Young Voices Changing the Currents. You can find a link to that in our Reimagining Access series. But through the conversations I've had with, various first-gen students, I met with this one individual who I met with her as a senior, and she was expressing the challenges she was facing with the actual application process and leaving home, and kind of some cultural family stuff. And I had the opportunity to talk to her this past fall, where she's now a freshman at Cal Poly SLO. And I was telling her, I said, you were in the middle of application season, so you knew you were pursuing some sort of post-secondary pathway. But when we were talking about ideas for how she could be involved in, some of our more commercial partner programs, she was saying, I don't really know what to say. And I said, well, think of yourself 2, 3, 4 years ago as a freshman. What would you say to your younger self? What would you say to the other students who were doubting themselves as 9th and 10th graders? Because I'm sure you felt that when you were that age. And I think, so that was just a great example of why the peer-to-peer is so important, especially amidst a changing landscape, because, there's a lot going on. But so with that, where do you think students and families are struggling the most? Besides, obviously we're in California, there's a lot of different groups that are being affected right now. But where are we seeing, what are some of those challenges? And kind of with that, how are you expressing that support to your students and families?
I'm going to kick it to Dr. Winters to kick this one.
You got it. Perfect. So yeah, I'll say a couple things about the current struggle. And part of where I sit overseeing middle schools and not high schools is that I don't have as much anecdotal information, but I can share a couple things that I think appear to be a struggle. The first thing that is a potential barrier, which is information. And so there's either way too much information, they can't gather all that information to make an informed choice, or there's a lack of information, whether it's language being a barrier or the college culture being foreign to a family. First generation college going students have no experience to draw from. And so I'll give an anecdotal case of my admin assistant whose daughter got accepted last year to UC Berkeley. And so she's from this area. Actually, her family is from Mexico, Ensenada. And I saw what I've seen many times, that first reaction to mom was, there's no way my daughter's going that far away from me to go to college, right? So there was that fear, and it was through the network that she had here of just other colleagues she knew had sent their kids off to college that helped lower that affective filter. They were able to visit the campus and gain some confidence that her daughter could do it. And she sent with her daughter 2 friends from the school that were able to hang out close and make sure she survived that first freshman quarter. But it was that network of our community that came and supported her to give her confidence that her daughter, who had all that was needed to get into that school, could also succeed once she got there. So helping provide those informal networks to sprout up and grow is one thing I think we need to do more of.
Yeah, I really like that.
Yeah, I would add, I mean, very, very similarly, the kind of the lived experiences of other people around us will again alleviate the fears, the misnomers, the misinformation. So I think that's really powerful. What Dr. Winters just shared. I think what I would add is that I still believe that just access and financial aid remain challenges. Being able to make sure that our kids can get access, and then that they can make sure they navigate the financial aid system, which can unlock the access that is so necessary. And so I think kind of one of some of the hurdles that are clearly still there is the ability for our students and families to sustain the grit and the persistence to navigate the myriad number of challenges with respect to application timelines, financial aid timelines. Once you get notified that you've been accepted, there's another series of hoops that you have to jump through. Then you get a financial aid award letter, and then there's timelines for that. And it's making sure that our families and our students are able to navigate that and getting the right information, and then also being given the right tools and the right resources to be able to navigate that process. I have the privilege of being married to my wife, who is a university administrator in charge of a program called EOP, Educational Opportunity Program, and they specifically are an admissions and retention program. And so she tells me all of the stories around where students have all kinds of academic potential, but because they failed to check this box or turn in this form or read this email or submit this questionnaire by a deadline, certain universities, not all, but certain universities will use that as the opportunity to relinquish that access. And so just empowering people with information and giving them the grit and the resources to be resilient and persist through these doors and challenges and hoops, I think is a really important piece. And then the added layer, and I know this is the case for Dr. Winters and his school community as well, is in providing all those wraparound support services in a bilingual form and fashion. Because it's one thing for our students to know, but we have to also empower their parents to be able to know and understand what's happening as well. And so I think those are really important to make sure that we're having FAFSA workshops, to make sure that we're having motivational events where people can get real information from people on the ground who have a lived experience, because when you hear it from somebody who has a lived experience, again, it's this powerful reinforcer that Dr. Winters has already touched on. So I think those are some of the things that we also have to be thoughtful around of helping folks to navigate the admissions process.
Yes, I think both of you brought up great points, and I think mostly the financial equity conversation is a whole big piece of this puzzle. And so, even the term FAFSA, most people don't know what that is until they're in the application season or they have a senior. So just keeping those, between workshops and having these open communications, just making sure that the transparency about what's going on is happening at all times. It sounds like both of you do a really good job at executing that within your own district. And of course, having these tools and these workshops and resources in a bilingual format helps loop the family in and gives them the confidence that they're sending their child, or whatever that looks like, off into the world, and they want them to be successful. And I think part of that is having the information and knowing exactly what's going on. So that's great. I guess we kind of touched on, what kind of programs that you have in order for students to showcase their strengths, but is there any sort of example that, you've come across, or maybe something that you've carried from your own experiences that you've brought into your position, and really tried to enforce? I know, Dr. Emerson, yours was not putting students in a box, but if there's anything that you want to share, any personal sentiments kind of surrounding any students, or just anything that you bring with you every day to your job that you keep in mind.
Dr. Winters?
Sure, I'll jump in. I think I was hearing Dr. Emerson talk about the many ways people can kind of fall through the cracks, students can fall through the cracks. And it's well established, the summer melt, which happens after kids get accepted to the university. From then till that school year starts, for many reasons, they drop through, whether it's bureaucracy or financial aid hits real and the parents freak out about that, or just that cultural fear of going on to a new city or entity they've never been on before. Many kids drop out before they even start. So what I'd love to see happen more of is that support. I mean, we sometimes, obviously, they leave us June 5th they graduate, they're done, we got them into college. But from then till they start UC Berkeley in September, I know many of our counselors take it upon themselves to stay in touch, and it's kind of on their own. But I think we need to build a better system to do that handoff until they actually begin in college. So some way to keep the communication alive during that summertime. We've had programs where we've created the summer bridge for folks to help them through that. I think that needs to be standardized and reinforced so kids get to the start line so they can then be successful.
Yeah, that was actually a topic I was talking about with one of the admissions directors, one of our partners over at UCSB, and we were talking about what kind of events can we host as Siembra and UCSB for the students that are having those doubts, or maybe think that a transfer pathway is a better fit for them. Not necessarily, and it's non-traditional for universities to encourage students to maybe not attend right away, but I think that's something that has come up, and is the post-secondary side is seeing that. And so it's good that I think everyone is kind of shifting towards creating these different pathways, and keeping them in a way that doesn't feel like, well, this is the right one and this is something else, because every student has their own path.
Yeah, I have a really, really strong opinion about what I'm about to say. Because I'm looking at the banner of our webinar today, and it says Reimagining College Access. And so I'm taking the word college literal, meaning that college does not need to mean a university. College could mean a community college. College can mean a number of different things. And so through my own experience and just my own kind of view of the world, I think it is our job to create as many what I'll call on-ramps as possible. That's through, if you want to do a 2-year pathway, if you want to do a 4-year option, if you want to pursue military, you want to pursue some sort of a certification. Our job is not to, again, back to my own experience of putting kids into a box where thou shalt be this. Rather, like, here are all these different freeway on-ramps. Which one do you want? Any one of them can take you to a great destination. Which one do you want to get on? It's not my job to tell you which one. It's just my job to tell you about all the different ones. And I feel like for so long, there was one pathway, there was one on-ramp, and that on-ramp was you either went to a 4-year university or you were somehow, some way less than. And we've got to reposition, actually not reposition, we've got to eliminate that as a mindset, because quite frankly, all the things that we've done over the last decade and a half to really amplify just how important, we keep saying college and career, but it's like we say college and career, but we really still really mean college. And career is kind of too much of a secondary. And my point is, I think that we have to rethink that. I think the world that is emerging, the world that is evolving, is a place and a space where both need to and must coexist. And we've got to reprogram our own brains. Our brains, as a parent of a high school senior and a high school junior, like I have to reprogram my own brain to move out of move back to superintendent mode almost when I'm thinking about my own children, and that there's multiple pathways and not my dad brain that says, oh, you must go to you know where. Like, so I can't fall into my own trap. Because then I'm not being true and authentic. And I just think that our job is to create as many opportunities and as many pathways and as many, and we're right near freeways. So I just keep using the visual of on-ramps to a destination, and there can be any number. And I think that that's the most important thing that we can do now is create those on-ramps for kids.
I think that's incredible. That kind of just segues to my last overall question of how can we support students and families going forward? And I think that's the perfect way, is to just make sure that students feel seen and that they don't, it's not one size fits all, meeting students where they are. And I think what's interesting, I strongly dislike talking about COVID because I think it's a lot of negative. Oh, well, you know, productivity went down and it was a difficult time for everyone. I think everyone can agree on that. But I do think something that is a good thing that came out of COVID was that everyone was on everyone had something going on. It impacted them in different ways. I was actually a high school senior at the time. So to me, it was like, what's next? What comes next? I'm wrapping up my childhood. I'm about to go off to college, but my college isn't opening the first year. I'm not even going to campus. What does this mean? And I think from then on, the way that I saw even my sister, who's 3 years younger, approach her applications and how other kids her age were approaching them, and even how it's evolved over the last few years after she's been in college, I see such a shift in how a student thinks about, or how other people view a student who may not be going directly to college. If you take one of your maybe like one of your top performing high schools and you look at those top 10% of kids, we kind of know that they're going to go. You know, they've been on that track, they're motivated, they're very smart. We know they're going to go. How do those kids view other kids who aren't on those paths? And I think that has changed incredibly. It's not like, oh, well, they're not going to college. Well, what else are they doing? It's, oh, they're actually going to go, you know, serve, or they're going to go to trade school, or it's not as taboo of a conversation even in the last 5 years. So I think that's a great part of the paradigm shift that's happening. But I'm curious, just any final notes that you have about supporting our students.
Yeah, I'll jump on what you both said in terms of not sending the unintended messages that junior college is less than or career is less than college, and we do that all the time unintentionally. But I agree with Dr. Amerson. We've said college and career, but our actions haven't always backed up that equality and as viable options, all of them. I can tell you, I have 2 kids, a little farther ahead of Amerson. My both went off to UCs. One of them took 4 years, graduated, off to many successes. The other dropped out in 2 years, less than 2 years. So she's now back at a junior college and thriving. So she found her path. Mom's getting used to it. I'm good. Like, she's found a path, and it's going to be a little different and slower path, but it's okay. Last thing I'll say, I ran into a kid who was one of my students back when I first started teaching, Kiko Palacios at Castle Park High. So this is nearly 40 years ago. He was an English learner, baseball player, and he talked to me about his family. I don't think he went to college, but here's what I learned about Kiko. He has 3 girls who are all D1 softball players, and 2 of them graduated already. The third is going to play possibly for Team USA. He owns a truck company and is just thriving. So he got there in a different way, and look at his second generation family is just doing all those things we would hope. So other pathways, we didn't even talk about athletics, VAPA, absolutely, those are still thriving in all of our schools, and kids will get to their success if we just give them those doors, those opportunities, and they'll make it one way or the other. So just keep all those doors open.
I love it.
Yeah, I would just echo Dr. Winters, and let's just keep giving kids opportunities. Let's keep listening.
Mhm.
Let's listen to kids more. Let's elevate student voice and student agency. If we just listen, they'll tell us all kinds of really cool stuff, and then we can create better systems and better programs for them. I'll just make two more points, and then I promise, because I can be long-winded, so I'll just make two more
Yeah.
points. Point number one is that I think uh, we have to continue to give kids all the way down into the middle school opportunities to explore lots of different things. We also have historically gotten caught up in the point of like, what are you going to be? What are you going to be when you grow up? When are you going to be when you grow up? And then we wonder why kids change their majors 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different times when they get to the university. And then when they graduate from university, they end up doing 5 or 6, 7 different jobs that have nothing to do with the major that they had, because their brains at 14 don't know what they want to be or don't know what they want to do. And many times when they spout something out, they're actually doing it to appease an adult, not because it's the passion of their life, because they don't know what that is yet. And so let's be more in a position of where we are just helping kids to discover things by giving them carousel approaches to electives, talking about lots of different pathways, giving opportunities for short micro credentials and micro certifications so kids can dip their toes into things and then get back out and then check out something else, because you never know when you're going to find your flow. Your flow might be in
Yeah.
value. Your flow might be in athletics. Your flow might be in leadership. Your flow might be in service-based things, whatever those things are. Again, we're talking about all the different on-ramps. And then the last thing I'll just say is let's mobilize and let's just amplify our parents and help our parents who are trying to help their kids navigate a very, very tenuous, very stressful, but also potentially a life-changing event, meaning high school graduation, what they're going to do next, whether it's college and or career. Let's help parents navigate that process better.
That's great. Yeah, I think this has been a great conversation. I want to applaud the two of you because I know that you both have spent a lot of time trying to keep students and elevate the student voices, and making sure that they feel supported, which from everything you've said, they definitely do. But thank you so much for being on. I mean, we could talk about this for ages, I know that, but I'll cut us off for the sake of time. But I just want to say thank you to everyone who's on, and thank you to those who might be watching afterwards. Siembra is a platform that is helping bridge the gap between K-12 and post-secondary, and we couldn't do it without partners like Verde and Sweetwater. So thank you so much. And I hope you check out the first episode if you haven't already. And Elevating Young Voices, I have a podcast called Young Voices Changing the Currents. So you should check that out too. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Haley.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
nice to meet you.
Yes, it's fine. It's great to finally meet you in person.
Likewise, likewise. You guys have a great rest of the day. And Haley, continue to let us know how we can be helpful.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you everyone for being on.
Have a great rest
Likewise.
of the week.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.